What's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. My name's Johners and this is episode 27 of the podcast. So if you haven't already, I'm going to urge you to go out and listen to last week's episode 26, where myself and David Anderson reviewed the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, which was a pretty good show actually. And if you haven't listened to our review of that, go out and check out episode 26, which was released last Tuesday. You can find it on all popular podcast platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, it's even on YouTube and many others. So regardless of what podcast platform you download your podcast from, I'm sure you'll be able to find Wrestling with Johners and have a listen to last week's episode. It was very good. This week we are going to be focusing on NXT and NXT UK from the 20th of February. So yes, I know that was nearly a week away. My shoot job, my real life job, has been very busy lately. So I haven't found the time that I was hoping to dedicate to this episode. But we're here. We're reviewing it now. So welcome if you're listening. Before we start talking about the wrestling news, just want to throw a little plug out there for me. So I'm on social media. So if you want to follow me, if you want to follow the podcast, Wrestling with Johners, you can do. We got a popular Twitter page on Twitter. Follow us at withjohners_pod. If you want to listen to my thoughts, any latest news that crops up, please go on there and give us a follow. On Facebook, we got an ever-growing Facebook group. Just go onto Facebook and search Wrestling with Johners and join in on all the fun news and banter there. I'm on Instagram as well, so you can follow the podcast Wrestling with Johners on Instagram. Simply go to instagram.com/Wrestling with Johners. And get interactive with us there. Listen to all of the latest news and happenings from NXT, NXT UK, WWE, and kind of wrestling in general, really, from around the world, with updates, news, and information from myself and various contributors. So first of all, I kind of want to have a look at this week's top 3 news stories. So there's been quite a few releases within the WWE over the last few days or so. There's been TJP, the former Cruiserweight champion, that's gone from the WWE. There's been Hideo Itami that's also left. Ty Dillinger and also Arn Anderson. So let's talk a little bit about each of these individuals in a bit more detail. So TJP has been quite vocal of late about not being used properly, and even commented on his Twitter that he'd put forward an idea for himself that was allegedly recycled as a way to introduce Ricochet onto last week's Monday Night Raw from Lafayette, Louisiana. TJP was the first ever WWE Cruiserweight champion, you may remember, defeating Gran Metalik in the final of the tournament in summer 2016. But despite some character development, he never really progressed beyond 205 Live, and grew frustrated with his position within the company. TJP took part in the Worlds Collide tournament not long ago, but he was eliminated by Dominik Dijakovic in the first round. And on February the 19th episode of 205 Live, TJP was defeated by Humberto Carrillo in what was his final televised WWE match. And then on the 22nd of February, Perkins was released from his contract from the WWE. I think he may have had a little bit of backstage heat for being a bit negative, a bit vocal. That's yet to be confirmed. That's only really the rumour going out there. Hideo Itami, the former Kenta, is another wrestler who was granted his release this week. Hideo was plagued by injuries, especially in NXT, the first of which was a severe shoulder injury that happened in 2015 when he was earmarked to defeat Kevin Owens for the NXT Championship at the Beast in the East special in June 2015. However, after suffering his first major injury since joining the NXT, he was replaced by Finn Balor on that show, and we did not see Itami for another year after that. He also suffered another debilitating injury at the hands of Riddick Moss after Moss botched a power slam and pretty much landed Kenta on the back of his head, and certainly didn't do Itami any favours with that, putting him on the shelf for another 6 months. One of Itami's highlights with the company was his appearance in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal at WrestleMania 31. He won a tournament over access over WrestleMania weekends to be the NXT entrant in that year's Battle Royal. Itami was eliminated by the Big Show. Itami did have a solid feud at one point during last year with Mustafa Ali on 205 Live, and was part of the pre-show four-way match for the Cruiserweight Championship you may remember on this year's Royal Rumble, which many people, including myself, thought would be his crowning moment. However, his loss in that match indicated the beginning of the end for Itami, and of course he was released on the 22nd of February. And I'm sure that Itami will be reprising his Kenta name on the independents and possibly around Japan very soon. No doubt he'll be seen possibly in Pro Wrestling Noah, where he made his name in Japan. Then there's Tye Dillinger. Tye Dillinger requested his release and was granted his release over the weekend. His 90-day no-compete clause will expire just a few days before AEW's Double or Nothing show on May the 25th. And it is well known that Tye, real name Ronnie Arniel, is good friends with Cody Rhodes. He had previously tagged with Cody Rhodes in OVW when they were both in developmental, and was well liked by Dusty Rhodes when he was part of the backstage team in NXT when Tye Dillinger was in development in NXT, of course. Dillinger suffered a hand injury in October 2018, which kept him out of action for several months. He returned to in-ring competition at a house show in February the 9th. However, he was still not used on television, and on February the 19th, Dillinger announced on Twitter in a statement that he had requested his release from the WWE and was granted his release also on the 22nd of February. Then there's Arn Anderson, a legendary member of the Four Horsemen and WWE Hall of Famer. Was with the company for 18 years as a backstage hand, as an agent, producer, and was the agent for John Cena, all of John Cena's big matches and all of Triple H's big matches, apparently, and was very popular with many in the company. Arn was supposedly sent home and told not to return by Vince McMahon himself after a war of words because of a disagreement that happened at a house show. I'm sure that more will come out about the story. However, WWE has made plenty of noise on their website and their YouTube channel about their new signings to their creative team with the likes of Sanjay Dutt, Sean Daivari, Shane Hurricane Helms, Abyss, Jeff Jarrett, and even Bruce Pritchard all being signed on as agents, producers, members of the backstage team over the last week, and with Bruce Pritchard being signed as a senior member of the creative team to once again be one of Vince McMahon's right-hand men. With that's obviously one of the biggest news items of the week. Where does that leave Bruce Pritchard? Where does that leave the Something to Wrestle With podcast? Will they continue doing the podcast, him and Conrad Thompson? We know that Conrad Thompson is heavily involved, one of the main organisers of Starcast, and they're going to be doing the second ever Starcast over the weekend of Double or Nothing this coming May. And, has that potentially, upset one or two people behind the scenes at the WWE because he's got an association with AEW? He was there at the initial rally, AEW rally, at the beginning of January. And he's got a little bit of an association there with AEW, especially very strong ties with the company in terms of the Starcast convention that will be happening before Double or Nothing in May. I personally am a really big fan of the Something to Wrestle With podcast. I've listened to every single episode. I've enjoyed every single episode and really enjoy the partnership between Conrad Thompson and Bruce Pritchard. They did actually have a stint on the WWE Network with a network exclusive show, Something Else to Wrestle With, you may remember, with lots of exclusive stories and backstage clips. They did episodes on Shawn Michaels, on CM Punk, all very entertaining kind of extensions from the podcast that's been going over 2 years. Pritchard was involved in many key storylines over his 20-year career with the WWF and WWE alongside Vince McMahon, the likes of Pat Patterson, Gerald Briscoe, Michael Hayes, in a prominent backstage capacity, and it'll be interesting to see what influence he has over creative and storylines, if any at all, when he returns to the company from this week.
Finishing Move Limited, specialising in simple, stylish and versatile items to elevate your everyday. Check out their Instagram at Finishing Move Limited and find their elevated essentials range at finishingmovelimited.com.
Let's have a look at some other news items that have been catching my eye over the last few days. Well, we have to look no further than what happened last night, the big angle to end Monday Night Raw. Of course, it was the celebration, the birthday party of the Nature Boy Ric Flair. It was actually his 70th birthday on Monday, so they were celebrating last night. You saw the likes of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Shawn Michaels. Even Sting was there to help celebrate the Nature Boy's 70th birthday. But as they were waiting on stage and in the ring for the Nature Boy to make his grand entrance, and they've been building up to this, there was Batista, unannounced, unexpected, dragging the Nature Boy through the backstage area. Triple H got out of the ring, ran to the backstage area to see if his friend, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, was okay. Obviously, Batista wasn't there, but this is an extension of what happened from last year, where we had Evolution. We had Randy Orton, Triple H, Batista and Ric Flair in the ring, and Batista showed a little bit of dissension because he said how much he respected all the members in the ring, but that Triple H couldn't get over the fact that he's never beaten the Animal Batista, kind of adding fuel to the speculation that they might be having a WrestleMania match. Last night's activities on Monday Night Raw, last night's storyline and angle with a Ric Flair getting dragged through the backstage area on his 70th birthday on Monday Night Raw, definitely cemented the fact that we will almost certainly be seeing Batista at WrestleMania in April. Now, Big Dave has always said he wanted that one last match, that one last WrestleMania match, to be against Triple H ideally. With the storyline development that happened last night on Monday Night Raw, it looks like he'll be getting his match against Triple H. Triple H, of course, is just recovered from shoulder injury, which he suffered at the Crown Jewel event in Saudi Arabia. Back in November, I think it was, when he teamed with Shawn Michaels to go up against The Undertaker and Kane in that kind of that cluster of a show. Basically, it wasn't well received. The main event was terrible, but I think his match, Triple H's match with Batista at WrestleMania, although they're not the most dynamic of wrestlers, I think the build already has been very, very good, very, very interesting. Especially with what happened last night. I think Batista definitely makes a better heel than he does babyface. Not entirely sold on Triple H being a babyface at all, to be honest with you, but it should be an interesting encounter and a good match, as long as it doesn't go on last. I'm not expecting it to, but let's hope so. And then the final big news story of the week once again happened last night, and it was the return of Roman Reigns. So Roman Reigns opened the show to a fantastic reception from the fans in attendance at Monday Night Raw last night, to announce that his leukemia is now in remission. So the last time we saw Roman Reigns was on the 22nd of October, where he told the wrestling world that he'd been living with the disease for the last 11 years and that it had returned. We've seen pictures of him on the internet, of him filming scenes with The Rock for the Fast and Furious spin-off, which is due out later on this year. It was great to see him get a fantastic reception from the fans. Will we see another Shield reunion before Dean Ambrose departs? Who knows? After his announcement, he was walking up the ramp, Seth Rollins' music started, and they kind of embraced. Good to see those two have a moment last night. But will we see an entire Shield reunion? Dean Ambrose is now a bit of a babyface. You saw his kind of spot with Elias in the ring last night, where he hit Elias with the dirty deeds. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know that Dean Ambrose will be gone just after WrestleMania. I don't think we'll see Roman Reigns in the ring before WrestleMania, if I'm honest with you. I think although he's in remission, he's still recovering and he's still receiving treatment. I don't think he'll be medically cleared until after WrestleMania, possibly, maybe working closer to SummerSlam, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see when he does make his return. But there's been a lot of activity with Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and even Elias getting involved. We saw at the Elimination Chamber where Braun Strowman was triple power bombed through 2 tables. It was essentially the Shield triple power bomb executed by Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin on Strowman. And that kind of sent some rumblings that potentially we could be seeing the 3 of them up against the Shield at WrestleMania. Like I say, I don't really know. It might be a good send-off for Dean Ambrose. I personally think it's too soon for Roman Reigns to be returning, but we shall see further developments to kind of no doubt happen in the weeks to come. We're only about 6 weeks away from WrestleMania. So watch this space. Interesting things, especially with regards to Roman Reigns. But I am really, really happy to see that he's fit and well, and that he's fighting the disease. And that, it might not be too long before we see him back in the ring. He looked healthy, he looked strong, he looked positive, he was getting an amazing reception from the fans. So good news all round. Moving on, let's review last week's NXT UK from the 20th of February. So tonight, a big main event will be the rematch for the NXT UK Women's Championship between champion Toni Storm and former champion Rhea Ripley. But first, we get a match between Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan Webster against Joe and Mark Coffey, the Coffey brothers. So the Coffeys look like a force to be reckoned with as they make their way down to the ring. And Mark and Joe dominate the first few minutes, bullying Morgan Webster in the early going until he is able to make the hot tag to Mark Andrews, who connects with a sweet boot to the face of Joe Coffey, followed by a Hurricane Rana. This doesn't last long, however, before a double team from the Coffeys brings Andrews back down to earth. Joe dominates Andrews with stiff shots and pure brutality, and then with a full Nelson, followed by a double underhook slam. Mark Andrews does eventually make the tag back to Webster, who changes the pace of the game and manages to hit a springboard moonsault, a knee to the face on Mark Coffey, and a Hurricane Rana to Joe Coffey on the outside. Mark Andrews does get a 2 count on Mark Coffey after an assisted 450 splash. Andrews then manages to hit a tornado DDT on Joe Coffey before Webster sends the big man to the outside with a headbutt. Andrews and Morgan Webster hit a double somersault plancher onto both Coffey brothers. Andrews manages to nail a stun dog millionaire on Joe Coffey. However, the Coffey brothers soon regain control of the match with a huge forearm from Mark and the best for the bells lariat from Joe Coffey. Mark covers after that huge double team move for the 1-2-3 and the pinfall victory for the Coffey brothers. So that was an okay match between these two teams, but the Coffeys were just too big and dominant against Mark Andrews and Flash Morgan. We then get a selfie promo from Jordan Devlin where he mentions this fantastic outing at the Worlds Collide tournament a couple of weeks ago. He sends out a message to Travis Banks saying that he'd better grow eyes in the back of his head because he's not finished with him yet, not by a long shot. We then see a promo for Kaylee Ray. She says that it doesn't matter about Toni Storm, Rhea Ripley or any of the other girls in NXT UK's vision. All that matters is that Kaylee Ray is here. On the subject of Kaylee Ray, you've probably seen the pictures from this weekend's NXT UK tapings in Coventry. Viper is now part of NXT UK. Now, I couldn't be any happier. Big fan of Viper. To be fair, I was a little bit behind the curve when it came to Viper. Of course, I saw her on the World of Sport, a New Year's Eve special from the beginning of what would it have been now, 2017. And then we saw a bit more of Viper, or Piper Niven, as she was known during the WWE's Mae Young Classic in the summer of 2017, where she really shone, got through to the quarterfinals there and lost out to her best friend Toni Storm in that tournament. But she really caught my eye. I thought she was involved in some of the better matches of that tournament in 2017, and I can't wait to see her as part of the WWE once again within the NXT UK brand. I've been a huge Viper fan for, since 2017, and I can't wait to see more of her very soon in NXT UK. Then we get a match pitting Trent Seven versus Shane Thorne. Obviously, Shane Thorne used to be one half of the tag team TM61, or the Mighty. So worlds collide once again in this match as Trent Seven, former NXT Tag Team Champion and current Progress Atlas Division Champion from the NXT UK brand, faces Shane Thorne from NXT, making his NXT UK debut. So of course this match was filmed over Royal Rumble weekend at the Royal Rumble Access event. So obviously there was going to be a mixture of NXT UK, NXT and 205 Live superstars there, because of course that's where they also filmed the Worlds Collide tournament. So you were going to get a little bit of a mishmash of talent and matches. And obviously this particular match was filmed over that weekend. But Seven sold his right arm quite a bit during this match, after being injured from earlier on in the match, where Shane Thorne worked over Trent Seven's arm. There was a top rope superplex spot from Seven onto Thorne. They got a 2 count. Trent Seven finally managed to put his opponent away with the 7-star lariat after 10 minutes, and it was quite an entertaining match. Really enjoyed that match. Both wrestlers gelled quite well in the ring. Trent Seven went over in the end after 10 minutes. We then get a backstage interview with Jack Gallagher, who will be looking to have a nice cup of tea with the NXT UK General Manager Johnny Saint to discuss his future with the NXT UK brand. Personally, I'd love to see more of Jack Gallagher appear on NXT UK, and he's a regular fixture on 205 Live, as we all know, but Jack would be a great addition to the NXT UK roster, especially to add a bit more contrast with his ground-based mat work offense, with his expertise in submission style wrestling. I'd love to see Jack Gallagher go up against Jordan Devlin, Tyler Bate, or maybe even Pete Dunne on an episode of NXT UK in the future. He wouldn't be a bad addition to the brand at all. Then we see the grizzled young veterans, Zach Gibson and James Drake. They're in the ring, microphone in hand, declaring that they are the very first NXT UK Tag Team Champions. Gibson says that for 13 long years, he's travelled the world showing everyone exactly what they already knew. They have the shiny new NXT UK Tag Team Championships, proving that they are the best tag team in the world. Gibson says that he would much rather be sat at home with a pack of biscuits and a cup of tea enjoying his life, but instead he has been dragged against his will, flown halfway around the world so that he can educate this bunch of Yanks to show why British wrestling is still the very best, and as to why the grizzled young veterans are the very best of the best. Gibson then sends out a challenge to Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. They pronounce the NXT UK Tag Team titles as the most important anywhere in the WWE. Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan then comes out onto the stage, and Danny Burch says that nothing makes him prouder than to have Oney Lorcan as his tag team partner. Danny says that Johnny Saint said that they would have to wait until next week, but the way he sees it, why wait? So Burch and Lorcan approach the ring to face off against Drake and Gibson in an impromptu match, but the tag team champions climb out of the ring and make their way backstage back to the locker room. So it looks like we will have to wait one more week for the match between Burch and Lorcan versus the grizzled young veterans Zach Gibson and James Drake for the NXT UK Tag Team Championships. Then we get the main event of this episode of NXT UK, Toni Storm, the NXT UK Women's Champion versus former champion Rhea Ripley. So this is their third match in their recent history, with Rhea winning the tournament final against Toni Storm to be crowned the inaugural NXT UK Women's Champion. Toni Storm then won the championship from Rhea Ripley at TakeOver Blackpool last month, and now here we are with their rematch with Toni as the champion. Rhea attacks Toni with a wild flurry of punches before the match even begins, and continues the assault after the bell. Storm soon hits back with a basement dropkick and some stiff forearms. Ripley pulls Storm to the outside, with Storm landing hard on the outside on the ringside area before being rammed hard into the corner post on the outside. Ripley applies a vicious body scissors on Toni Storm in the centre of the ring, which Storm manages to reverse before Rhea Ripley nails a wicked and well executed dropkick to the face of the champ. Rhea then applies her inverted cloverleaf in the centre of the ring, but Toni manages to leverage her opponent out of the ring before nailing Ripley with a dive through the ropes to the outside. Storm executes one of her patented German suplexes and a second one for a close near fall. Ripley nails a stiff short arm clothesline, but Storm manages to hit a backstabber to get a bit of respite from the bigger and more powerful Ripley. Storm floors Ripley with a big old headbutt for a 2 count of her own. Ripley shows off her more agile side by landing a kick to the face of the champ, who was sitting on the top rope, before going up to execute a massive superplex for a very close near fall. Ripley lays in some boots in the corner, but Ripley runs shoulder first into the ring post, allowing Toni Storm to hit a Storm Zero finisher for the eventual pinfall victory to retain her NXT UK Women's Championship. In my opinion, this would be pretty close to being their best match of the 3 matches we've seen on TV, with Ripley dominating for much of the match, and Toni Storm showed all of us her tenacity as she puts the ever impressive Rhea Ripley away. Hopefully this won't be the last time we see Ripley in contention for the Women's Championship. In fact, I know it won't be, because she is so damn good. That draws an end to NXT UK for this week. Let's have a look at NXT from the 20th of February. Tonight sees Johnny Gargano defend his North American Championship for the first ever time, so pitting Johnny Gargano versus Velveteen Dream. But first we get an appearance from Aleister Black in our opening match of this week's episode of NXT. His opponent is Undisputed Era member, the Messiah of the Backbreaker, Roderick Strong. So the match started at a pace with quick strikes from Black, followed by a snap German suplex for the first 2 count of the match. Black gets sent to the outside, where Strong follows through with a wrecking ball dropkick. The match goes to the outside, where Strong drops Black back first onto the steel ring steps. Roddy then takes the match to Aleister Black, with Roddy showing us why he is such a prolific singles wrestler, although we've seen a lot of him in the tag team with Kyle O'Reilly over the last 10 months. There's a moment in this match where Aleister Black climbs down or escapes from an attempted superplex from Roderick Strong, only to be dropped with another punishing backbreaker from Roddy. Black strikes back with a knee strike and some stiff kicks of his own, before dropping Strong with a brutal brainbuster for a 2 count. The match goes to the outside once again and onto the ring apron this time, where Strong drops Black neck first onto the turnbuckle. That was another vicious spot from Roddy. That looked painful. Then from out of nowhere, Aleister Black cracks Roddy Strong with a wicked black mass, flooring his opponent for a 3 count and the stunning pinfall victory. Really entertaining match and a good opener to this episode of NXT. Black can barely get his hand raised before Bobby Fish, Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole rush to the ring to attack the victorious Black, but it isn't too long before Ricochet comes to the aid of his babyface buddy, with the tandem of Black and Ricochet standing tall at the end of it all in the centre of the ring. We see a backstage confrontation between Shayna Baszler and co against the rest of the NXT women's locker room, by the looks of it, headed by Mia Yim. This is likely to end up in a matchup between these two, Shayna Baszler and Mia Yim, in a future episode of NXT. Shots were definitely fired on Twitter this week when Mia Yim compared or called Shayna Baszler Sharon Corbin. Not sure if it's to do with a look or a hairstyle, but shots were definitely fired in that tweet from Mia Yim. We then see highlights of the newest recruits to the main roster, taking Raw and SmackDown by storm last week, with Aleister Black, Ricochet, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa all taking victory on both Monday and Tuesday nights, leaving questions yet to be answered, such as how frequently will they be used on the main roster? How will their characters be handled, and will there be any storyline continuity between what they're doing now on NXT and what they will end up doing on Raw and SmackDown? Nevertheless, exciting times for these 4 excellent recruits to the main roster, and even more exciting to think that we could well see all 4 of these not only at NXT TakeOver New York 2 nights before WrestleMania this April, but they may also be in featured matches at WrestleMania itself. The Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic returns in 2 weeks' time, with 4 teams announced already for the tournament so far, including the Undisputed Era, Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel, the Forgotten Sons and the Street Profits being the first 4 teams entered into this tournament. There will be another 4 teams announced next week to complete the first round lineup, first round tournament brackets, with the winner of the tournament going all the way to NXT TakeOver New York to face the NXT Tag Team Champions, the War Raiders. Then we have a match between Mia Yim and Xia Li. So Mia Yim wins this fast-paced match after only 6 minutes with a finishing move, and in a similar ending to the previous match that we just seen, we get Shayna Baszler, Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir storm the ring to attack Mia Yim after the match, further setting up their match. But just like the last match, the cavalry comes once again to the aid of Yim in the form of some of the undercard female talent in NXT, who are swiftly beaten by Shayna Baszler and co, leaving Shayna and her cronies alone with Mia Yim, who is told to show some respect to the NXT Women's Champion before promptly decking Yim to the canvas as she stands, as Baszler stands holding her NXT Women's Championship aloft in the centre of the ring. We then see Johnny Gargano getting ready for his title defence backstage with his wife Candice LeRae giving Johnny a pep talk ahead of his match with Velveteen Dream in the next match. Candice then spots Tommaso Ciampa as he enters the backstage area and asks what the hell is he doing here. Tommaso tells Johnny that he is here for him if he needs him tonight. Johnny responds by saying that he won the title on his own and that he doesn't need Tommaso, and that tonight he is going to do what he does best, be Johnny freaking wrestling. Tommaso tells Johnny that he'll be watching as this segment comes to an end. We then see clips of an up-and-coming special on Matt Riddle, where he's interviewed by Jeremy Borash on the WWE's YouTube channel. That will be a must-see interview with the original bro, Matt Riddle. Then we get the match, the main event for tonight's show. Johnny Gargano, the North American Champion, defending his title against Velveteen Dream. So Johnny Wrestling still appears to be torn as to which Johnny Gargano he is. He is still very popular with fans, but his association with Tommaso Ciampa over recent weeks still leaves some doubt as to whether he is a superhero babyface that we all love, or the newer and more aggressive Johnny Gargano that we have seen glimpses of over the last few weeks. The match begins with Gargano and Dream. It starts slowly until Dream slaps Gargano out of the ring as Tommaso Ciampa looks on from a backstage area. Dream nails Johnny with a second slap to the face and a double axe handle from the top turnbuckle. Johnny Gargano gets the upper hand after knocking Dream unceremoniously from the top all the way to the canvas to take control of this match. There's definitely a mixed reaction to Johnny Gargano in this match as he takes the offense to the Velveteen Dream on the outside. Dream makes a comeback with a solid spinebuster, a clothesline taking Gargano out of the ring, and another double axe handle from the top turnbuckle onto Gargano on the outside this time. Dream hits a famouser for a 2 count. Gargano hits a wicked spinning flatliner out of the corner for a 2 count of his own. Dream blocks an attempted slingshot DDT from Gargano, but couldn't avoid a tope from Gargano, which Dream shrugs off to hit an Oklahoma roll and his spinning DDT for a close near fall. Dream goes up to the top rope but misses his purple Rainmaker, allowing Gargano to nail a super kick for another very close near fall. The fans at Full Sail are completely invested into this match as Dream picks up Johnny Gargano on the second turnbuckle and delivers a super Dream Valley driver for a second close near fall with a loud "This is awesome" chant from the fans. Dream attempts another double axe handle onto Gargano on the outside, only to be caught with a super kick in mid-air before being pushed backwards into the steel ring steps, followed by a snap suplex onto the steel ramp on the outside. Johnny gets another close near fall from a slingshot DDT. Dream does get his second wind with back-to-back Dream Valley drivers, which he follows up with his purple Rainmaker top rope elbow, hooking the leg of Johnny Gargano for the 1, 2, 3, and we have a new North American champion, the Velveteen Dream. That match was super fast-paced, super fun from the very beginning, with plenty of false finishes, quick transitions, and high drama. Everyone in the audience was on the edge of their seats and everyone was on their feet, myself included. I thoroughly enjoyed that match. Definitely match of the week for me. That match went 20 minutes and was very good from the very beginning to the very end. Once you finish listening to this podcast, turn on the WWE Network, watch last week's episode of NXT, catch that main event. You will not be disappointed. But that draws an end to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This has been episode 27. So thank you very, very much for listening. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like and share, shout about this podcast, tell your friends, tell your family, and keep listening to the Wrestling with Johners podcast for all of your weekly NXT UK and NXT and occasional Progress Wrestling updates. I will be going to see Progress Wrestling for the first time in Birmingham next Saturday, so I'll be going with my friend and Wrestling with Johners contributor Matt Bayliss, so we'll be reviewing that show once we've seen it live in person a week or so later. You can catch the podcast, listen to it on all the major podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, YouTube, Podcast Addict, Stitcher, Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. We are literally everywhere. Once again, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can email the show wrestlingwithjohners@gmail.com. Visit our Twitter page @withjohners_pod. Visit our YouTube page where you can not only listen to this podcast, but you can see all of my videos from my time in New Orleans over the 5 days that I was at New Orleans in April 2018 for WrestleMania 34. We're now on Instagram. Go onto Instagram, search Wrestling with Johners, and you'll find us there. And don't forget, I really want to kind of build our Facebook group, our Wrestling with Johners community page on Facebook. Simply go onto Facebook, search Wrestling with Johners, tap on the icon, and request to be a part of that group. Lots of banter, news and updates, and fun articles on there on a daily basis. But that's pretty much it for me for another week. I'll be back again very soon to cover next week's episode of NXT and NXT UK. So in the meantime, take care, have yourself a good week, and speak to you all soon.